Hey, welcome back to Pop Culture Warrior. I am, of course, your host, CQ, and with me tonight, it's going to be a good one. My guest tonight is one of the most versatile and accomplished actors in Hollywood. He's made over 200 film and TV appearances, ranging from comedy to drama to thriller. He's best known for his roles as Joey in The Godfather Part III, David Rossi in Criminal Minds, and of course, how can we forget, Fat Tony in The Simpsons, of course, the legend. He's also a producer, a writer, and a director. He's won a Tony Award. He has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Hollywood Film Festival. He's also involved in several charitable causes, such as the USO, the Barbara Sinatra Children's Center, and since 2006, he has co-hosted with Gary Sinise the PBS National Memorial Day Concert in Washington, D.C., and we're going to ask him all about it. Please welcome to the show the legend himself, actor Joe Mantegna, everybody. Yay! Thanks for being here, Joe.
No, my pleasure. Thank you.
This is such a huge day. I'm such a huge fan. I know I've shared it with my audience before, and I showed it to you earlier, but I have the coin that you gave me years and years ago. So this is a full circle moment, and I just
there you go.
Thank you so much for that.
I'm gonna have to send you a fat. I'm gonna send you a Fat Tony coin. I've got a Fat Tony coin too. So I'll have to work on getting you one of those.
As you can see, I have a huge, just nerdy geek collection of everything from Marvel and Back to the Future, Ninja Turtles. I would easily put a Fat Tony coin up there,
okay.
Without question.
We'll make that happen.
You're awesome. So obviously, one of the big things you're here to promote is your upcoming hosting of the PBS National Memorial Day Concert. I want to read a little blurb on it, and then we can kind of dive into that. So the PBS National Memorial Day Concert is America's national night of remembrance. It returns live from the West Lawn of the U.S. Capitol this year. More than 3 decades long tradition, unlike anything else on television. The 90-minute broadcast takes us back to the real meaning of the holiday through personal stories and tributes interwoven with musical performances. The 34th annual National Memorial Day Concert will air on PBS and stream on YouTube, pbs.org/National Memorial Day Concert. It's Sunday, May 28th, 2023 at 8 p.m. Eastern. It'll be honoring the service and sacrifice of our men and women in uniform, military families, and all those who have given their lives for our country. So, obviously, I don't expect you to be a big fan of the show and have watched episodes, but one of the things that I always do, the first question, no matter who the guest is, writer, director, actor, comedian, I always want to ask, what is that person's personal connection to the military, whether they served, whether it was family, whether it was friends, or just big supporters? So, Joe, what is your connection to our military?
Well, my connection to the military really starts with my family, in the sense that all of my mother had 4 brothers, and they've all since passed away, but all 4 of them were World War II combat veterans. My father had his younger brother, World War II combat veteran. The only reason my own father wasn't, he was hospitalized during the entire duration of World War II with tuberculosis in a sanitarium. So 5 of these uncles, who I was very, very close to all my life, in fact, because my father always suffered from his health and died when he was only 57 years old. And so these uncles were very huge, very huge in my life, very important male role models. But they all came back. They all came back from the war, but never talked about it. And I've certainly learned over the years, especially with my connection with the military, that's fairly common. That especially combat veterans, it's not a point of conversation very often. But what ultimately happened is, back in 2002, my dear friend Charlie Durning, who actor, Silver Star recipient himself during World War II, came to me and said he had been involved with this National Memorial Day concert for about 10 years at that point. And I wasn't even aware of it. I mean, for me, Memorial Day was, like I said, I had all my uncles who had been in the military, but Memorial Day didn't have any real special personal significance outside of the fact, hey, Indianapolis 500, we'll all barbecue, see the relatives, that's that. But that particular Memorial Day, which was the one right after 9/11, Charlie says, "Would you like to come to Washington, D.C. and be part of this concert? We do this thing, we do readings, there's music." And the band Chicago was actually going to play that year. And they're very dear friends of mine. I thought, wow, this will be an interesting new way to spend Memorial Day weekend. Okay, Charlie, I'll do that. Well, I get to Washington, and to cut to the chase, what I had to do, my participation in that concert was to get on stage in front of we're on the west lawn of the Capitol. There's the Capitol in front of you. In front of me were 200,000 plus people live, standing there in seated, whatever. I mean, it was like, I go back to thinking of Woodstock, because I'm old enough to remember that. Here's all of these people. I'm on the stage, and my job as an actor for that particular concert was, now you have to understand, behind me, the Washington Symphony Orchestra is playing Mozart's Requiem. They have two huge movie screens on either side of the stage, and they're showing the planes flying into the World Trade Center. And then what I have to do is read the words of 4 New York firemen who had all lost their sons in 9/11, including one, John Figiano, who lost both of his sons because one was a fireman, one was a policeman who knew his brother was going to be there because his fire station was near the World Trade Center. So he showed up and he perished as well. So here's the music playing, Mozart's Requiem. The videos are planes flying into the World Trade Center, and in front of me there's 200,000 people, but in the first row, seated in the first row, special row, are the 4 New York firemen, the parents and their wives, and they're in their full dress fireman uniforms. And I have to say things like, "It's a good day," when they're going through the rubble and they find a patch of your son's uniform among the rubble. Now, all I could tell you is, as I was doing it, I realized it was an emotion and a feeling I'd never experienced before in my life. I thought to myself, I'm a performer. I've been an actor for many, many years at that point as well. That was over 20 years ago. But I realized this is not acting. I'm not doing a performance. I'm recounting history. And it took every ounce of energy in my body to just get through it. And I felt like I was going to levitate off the stage because it was just so emotional. So it just grabbed me all of a sudden. It instantly taught me what Memorial Day was about. Because I looked out in the audience and I saw there were a lot of wounded, warriors. They'd bring veterans to the concert. The guys in wheelchairs, they'd see them up at the Capitol building. They'd bring them out on the little balcony in front of the speaker's office. And so I got through it. And then as I got to the end, I walked off the stage and I embraced the family, the 4 firemen and their wives. And of course, I was gone. I mean, I'm Italian, so my emotions are pretty out front there most of the time anyway. So as I said, it was such an incredible experience. I said to the people who ran the concert, I said, "Look, I don't know if you ever need me to do anything again with you guys, but if you do, I'm in." And that's all I said. Well, that was 22 years ago, and I've been in for those 22 years, and I've been hosting it now for about 19 of those 22 years. I brought Gary Sinise in about 17 years ago because I knew he would be a perfect fit. Because the original hosts was Ossie Davis, and the wonderful actor Ossie Davis, who was a veteran himself. When Ossie passed away, it was my 3rd year doing the concert as an actor. They came to me and said, "Would you be willing to take over the hosting duties?" And of course, I was so honored and so humbled. I said, "Of course I will." And I did it that year. And then the following year, I brought in Gary, knowing he would be such a perfect fit. And then so the 2 of us have been doing it ever since. And so, I mean, it's a long answer to your question, but the bottom line is this. It instilled in me, and I've said this often, that Memorial Day, the holiday that I kind of thought of as, Indianapolis 500 barbecue, everybody's off from school, it's a short week, to the most important holiday that we celebrate in this country. Because without this holiday, there is no other holidays. Had it not been for those sacrifices, there is no other holiday. There is no other United States. There is no, So that's that's the revelation that I came to. And so that's why the concert is the important thing I do in my life each year. So, you know.
Well, we thank you on behalf of the veteran community. And, you know, I'm curious, and I'm going to have more questions about the concert itself. But, you know, like you said, post 9/11, we saw such a change in the American people and this unitedness and, you know, I guess uniting against the common enemy and a common thread. And I was a senior in high school when 9/11 happened, and I'm from New York, and I was in the city when it happened, and immediately I graduated that year, and I immediately signed up. I ended up in the Army and multiple deployments and whatnot. And that's how I ended up with the pieces of me missing. Have you seen? Because you know, as a veteran, as someone who you know is in the community and does a lot of things, I've seen a change over the years, and you know, with 20+ year war and almost this fatigue of like, oh, thank you for your service. And like, you know, when it used to mean something, it was passionate and delivered. And do you think like is now more than ever, it's important to do these Memorial Day concerts? Because it was easy, right? After 9/11, it was easy to get them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But,
no, it's very easy to fall into apathy. It's very easy, you know, when things are relatively good and there's no, you know, not a lot of, it's not like the nightly news is showing body counts, you know, overseas. It's easy to fall into that apathy of like, okay, well, things are, you know, we got problems, but you know, at least that thing we don't have to worry about. We don't have to worry about the men and women in uniform. They're not busy doing anything too dangerous right now. Yeah, that's a danger. I mean, and it's kind of ironic in a way, because during those periods of apathy, what it really means is that everybody's really doing their job in a way and ensuring the peace, you know, around the world as best they can. And that's why when those moments happen, when things happen, like, well, obviously what happened with 9/11, what's happened with throughout our history, when we have to basically unleash the dogs of war, then all of a sudden everybody pulls out the flag, everybody gets patriotic and everything. And of course there are periods when that doesn't happen to the extent it should have. And I certainly grew up through that period, the Vietnam period, where it was like a very unpopular war. There's a lot of protesting against it. And that's why I personally am not political. I never will get involved in any political way with what I do in terms of my support for the military, because I follow the lines of the military in the sense that it's the duty to follow the commander-in-chief, whoever it may be. And if people, we're lucky enough to be in a country where if you don't like who the commander-in-chief is, vote for somebody else next time, you know. But not everybody has that freedom in this world, on this planet, you know, but we do. But so for me to embrace politics is wrong, because then if I embrace one side, then I'm negating everything on the other side, and that's not the case. We are the United States of America, and of course we have differences, political differences, we have social differences, we have all kinds of things happening. But at the end of the day, in a time of great crisis, we tend to come together, and unfortunately, it happens at times like World War II, when all of a sudden everybody was united for that common cause, and that's why they say it was the greatest generation. But it shouldn't have to be that it takes a world conflict for everybody to say, hey, wait a minute, we got to pull together. We're all in this together. We are all united. We are all, you know, and thank God we have these men and women who are on the front lines. And there's no truer statement that freedom ain't free, but some of them pay a much higher price than others, you know.
That's right.
And it's like I say, I grew up during the Vietnam era. I could have very well been a name on a wall, you know, on that wall in Washington. The reason I wasn't, there was the draft lottery at the time, based it on your birthday. My birthday, I don't even remember what it was. It was probably 216 or something. And I didn't even think about it. I was in junior college at the time. It was like, oh, my number's what? Oh, okay. And then they never got even close to it. And I didn't think about it. Yeah. And it really wasn't until, like I said, when I did that concert and realized, wow, you know, we owe so much. And there's been other instances in my life, in my career. I remember I was doing a movie in France some years ago, about 15 years ago. And we're driving through this town to location, a beautiful location, Rambouillet, France, about an hour and a half outside Paris. And we're driving to the location I'm playing. It's a comedy. It's a great fun. I mean, I'm living the life. I mean, I'm really thinking, wow, this is a good day to be Joe Mantegna, you know? And then we're driving, and I see two flags flying in the distance where this town is. And I see one is a French flag and one is the American flag. I said to my driver, I said, what's that? And he says, oh, it's a cemetery. I said, well, let's go over there. So we go over there, and of course, what it is, it's a military cemetery. And there it was with the American flag and the French flag flying together. And I walked into this beautiful little cemetery in this little small town outside Paris, Rambouillet. And here were all these crosses and stones depicting the bodies of Americans. And boy, again, it just choked me up. It grabbed my chest of that, like, wow, yeah, you know, here I am having a good time, but I'm doing it on the shoulders of people like this, you know. And that doesn't change. That hasn't changed. And unfortunately, you know, I pray for the day when I won't have to do a Memorial Day concert because there's no need to, you know. But until that day comes, there's always going to be sacrifices every year. You know, even if something is a training exercises, you see guys that are out there flying, flying helicopters in a training exercise. That their sacrifice is no less.
Yeah,
you know, they're on watch.
You're so spot on, and it's incredible coming from someone who hasn't served. You are so in tune with the veteran experience, and your years working alongside the veterans is showing. You know, people forget that, okay, maybe we're not in an active war, but, you know, hate to spoil the surprise, we've got people operating all around the world 24 hours a day, 365 days out of a year. And then, you know, the worst, like you said, is we have training accidents. We have helicopters go down, things. It's important to honor the sacrifice and the service of all of our men and women in uniform. And I think you said it perfectly in that, you know, all gave some gave all. That's just right. That's the epitome of what it is. I'm curious. I've hosted events before. I've done some hosting here and there. I understand the challenges of hosting something. I can't imagine on the scale that you're doing. This is such a large scale event. For it to be live, for it to be out in the open, for it all these things, and then just the weight of honoring the sacrifices of the military members and their families. What are some of the challenges you go through doing something like that? What are some of the highlights of it?
Yeah, I mean, well, it every year is different, and every year is just as impactful. In fact, I'll bring it right up until the last one I did, which was last year. I mean, with the Memorial Day concert last year, I did a piece, as you know, besides hosting it. On occasion, I will do a dramatic piece, and I did this with the actress Jean Smart, the acclaimed actress from the show Hacks now and Designing Women and a million things. She's like one of the most acclaimed actresses alive right now in Hollywood. And we did the role of this couple, this general and his wife, who their story, and they were there in that front row, just like I said, what the firemen were. And it was the story of their two sons, one a veteran serving overseas in Iraq, the other one military as well. But what happens is the one son is killed in action, the other son commits suicide. And this is not an uncommon thing that has happened, things like that. So here was a case where I tell this story of this general and his wife and her daughter and their two sons, and now the two sons are both gone. And now this family is so active in trying to prevent, you know, treating in terms of, you know, mental illness or mental problems kind of that can happen, certainly, you know, in the military, you know, due to PTSD and whatever else, you know, just the ramifications of what they have to do. And so there I was doing that thing last year, and it was just as, you know, it was just the same as that, going back 21 years to that my first concert. It brought up all those same emotions because, again, I realized I'm recounting history, and I'm looking down at this general and his wife and their daughter, and again we walked off the stage, and I embraced them, and it was deja vu all over again, and no less impactful no less like, oh yeah, I've done this before, been there, done this. No, none of that. It's the first time all over again. And so that's why it's a challenge, but for me, it's like, God, it's the least I can do. I mean, that's not the challenge. The challenge is who we're representing and who we're trying to bring attention to and who we're honoring. That's the challenge. All I am is I feel like the court jester in the court. You know what I mean? If I can make them laugh and smile and feel good about themselves, or if not feel good about themselves, but at least be reflective of this, that, and the other, so everybody else can go out and do what they need to do in life, and so be it. But I feel very blessed to be who I am and do what I do. But I by my involvement with especially with the military, made me realize I'm blessed because of where I live, where I was brought up, and those shoulders I stand upon, which go back to 1776 and before.
Right. What are some of, like, doing something like this? And I feel like we've touched on it a little bit, but I want to ask, what is it that, you hope to convey to an audience that maybe isn't particularly, they're not one of those family members that were directly impacted,
right?
But for the general public that's watching, for those at home right now that are considering watching, what is it that you hope that they take away from this experience?
Well, again, I would stress that aspect, like I say, that first of all, that politics are not involved. Sometimes when I've run into occasions where I'll say, what are you doing? What are you going to be doing in May? Oh, well, I do this National Memorial Day concert. Oh, well, that's too political for me. Like, then I want to take the time to talk to them and say, well, wait a minute. We're not talking about something that has a party affiliation here. You know what I mean? This is Memorial Day is that thing for us as a nation to come together so we can have politics, so you can have your choices, so you can be who you want to be and think how you want to think and say what you want to say, and then have those freedoms. So to me, that's very important. That's one point I at least try to make, or try to hopefully exemplify, is that, it's not a matter of being liberal or conservative, or being black or white, or being one race or another, or being young or old, or anything. But that's what the whole basis of the United States was all about. So go back to the founding fathers, when they wrote that Constitution, that Declaration of Independence. That's the point they were trying to make. They were trying to set themselves a little different than everybody else. And that's what's important. And we can never, ever forget that. But it has to be protected. And we have to protect those who do the protecting. And we have to support them, because otherwise we'll lose it. And all you got to do is look at history. And there's a long line of great empires. The Roman Empire lasted 700 years and then went south. We've only been around about 250. So, we still got a ways to go. And it gets challenged every day.
How do you like physically, mentally prepare to do this every year? I'm sure there's a lot that goes into it. What's your process?
Well, physically, the point is, I still have my job, and they still have me chasing bad guys, on Criminal Minds. We're on a break right now because there's a writer's strike going on, but as soon as that's over, I'll be jumping back in the saddle of that. So I've always often been aware of that. I kind of, and everybody should. You really, in a way, you almost got to take care of number one first. Take care, because if you can't take care of yourself, then you can't help anybody else. So, I really do what I can. Like, I'm not the youngest guy in the building. So certainly when I'm at work, I'm pretty much the oldest guy in the building. And so I try to keep myself, physically, in good shape and alert, and do all the things I need to do that. And then beyond that, just take each day as it comes and try to keep the stress level low. My mother lived to be 101 years old. Or as I said, my father died prematurely due to bad health. My mother lived to be 101 and didn't die sick. She just kind of stopped, So I would like to hope I got maybe a good cross-section of her chromosomes floating in me somewhere. But it's just that if I've been fortunate to make a living doing what I love to do. I've got two daughters. I've got wonderful. I've been with my wife over 50 years. I'm really one of the lucky ones. I'm very blessed. And so beyond that, you just put one foot in front of each other each day and do what you can do. That's all you can do. Try to, keep your nose clean.
You can't be that. I think we're pretty much the same age. I'm pretty sure. I mean, you look incredible.
No. I'm in my. I keep telling everyone I'm in my diamond jubilee year. I'll be 76 in November. So they say 75 is your diamond jubilee. So I guess that's it.
There you go. And still chasing down the bad guys. God bless, man.
Still chasing. I'm the oldest guy. I'm the oldest guy in the FBI. Absolutely, but that's okay.
Hey, we're doing it. We're doing it. Is there anything, as we wrap up the concert talk, but is there anything specific that you can tease? Maybe something you're looking forward to, a performance or anything?
Well, we got
this year?
Yeah, we got a great lineup this year. I mean, we've got some have been there before. Like Mary McCormick is going to be back, who's just wonderful. I mean, I love Mary. She's many veterans in her family. We got John Slattery, who from Mad Men. We've got Dooley Hill. We've got Trace Atkins, a great country western singer. He's been with us numerous times. Trace is great. Let me see. We got a list of some of the people we got here. Yolanda Adams, gospel legend Megan Hilty, Chosen Jacobs. Let's see. We got Essie Parta Murkison from Chicago Med and Law and Order. Jody Messina, Philip Phillips. National Symphony Orchestra, of course, with Jack Everly, who we have every year. The Warren Treaty, husband and wife duo. He's a Iraqi war veteran. So, I mean, it's always, every year it's always different. The talent is different. We're going to be doing a special story about this one Vietnam vet who served 8 years. Was in confinement from the North Vietnamese for 8 years, and his wife, who never gave up hope. So they'll be depicted. And Mary McCormick, I think, and John Slattery will be doing that bit on them. We're doing a thing on the Gold Star families, which have always been a big part of our show on occasion. To show these are the wives, the mothers, the families who, when someone dies, in the military, their watch is over, but the family has to go on, and there's that, and then that's a whole issue into itself. We have the 70th anniversary of the Korean War. We'll be touching on that. And then a special thing on tribute about the merchant Marines from World War II. And that's going to be kind of personal for me in a way, because one of my dearest, closest friends in the world was Peter Falk, the actor who played Columbo. And we were very, very, very close friends. And he served in a merchant Marine. And, one eye and all, he wouldn't have been fit for duty, but he did the Merchant Marine, so that's going to be special even for me to be part of that tribute. So it's all I would say is to people is this: if you've never seen this concert, carve out 90 minutes of your Memorial Day weekend. Watch the race. Have your barbecue. Have the friends over. Do all that stuff. But either videotape it, do whatever you want to do, or tape it, or watch it live if you can. And find out where it is. It'll be on your PBS station all across the country and many stations throughout the world. And I guarantee you, after that 90 minutes of watching this show, you will understand, as I did, what Memorial Day is all about and why it's so important. And why to me, it's the most important holiday we have in this country. That's all. That's all I would say. And if after you see it, you say to yourself, okay, that's great. I really don't need to do this again. That's your choice. But I can't tell you the amount of emails I get and contacts I get from people even on the street that will say, I never missed that show after the first time I saw it. And because, like I said, that's what it does to me. I mean, even if I wasn't part of it, I mean, after seeing, what it does to you, what it instills in you, is so important. Those moments in one's life shouldn't be avoided if possible, and should be disregarded. That's all.
Yeah. How do you, you are an incredibly busy person. You have an incredibly busy schedule. How do you, as an actor, as a producer, as a director, stick to this commitment to the concert and to the veteran causes? Like, what is it that, how?
Well, you do. You have to have your priorities in life. That's all it is. I mean, you have a pecking order of things. And so once I got involved with this concert, I knew that this had to be a priority. So in other words, as it turns out, this year wasn't even that big a problem because there's a writer's strike going on, and I wouldn't have been working as it is. But there's been instances where if I'm filming on a project, I let them know right as, if it's in January or something and I know it's going to run into May, I'll say, just know I need these days free, and then that's okay. And that's not that big a deal. Like I said, what's the big deal about that? I mean, people just need to, it's just important. Set your priorities in life and try to stick to them as best you can. Obviously, things are going to happen and plans get changed and this, that, and the other. I'm knock on wood. I've been blessed that I made it from that first one I did in 2001. I haven't missed one yet, so we'll see. There'll come a day. It'll be like what I'm gonna pass it on to somebody else and say, "Hey, look, come here. You want to come with me to this thing, and now I want you to take over." I'm there.
I'm available if you need someone to host.
There you go.
I can fill it for you. I'm sure the people will be so excited to have me on stage.
You never know.
So a little bit about your career. I mean, and again, we don't have the days of time to talk about your incredible career, but just again, as a big nerd and geek and lover of all you've done, let's start with Fat Tony. You have voiced Fat Tony for over 30 years on The Simpsons.
Yeah, I'm still doing it. Yeah,
it's insane. It's incredible. Just real quick, how did you get involved with this character and with The Simpsons? Because I know that goes back to season 3, right?
Yeah, I entered in season 3 because what I think what happened was this: the Christmas of 1990 was the release of the movie Godfather 3, where I played basically the main villain, Joey Zaza. And that movie was very highly anticipated, as you can imagine. It was Godfather 3. I mean, the first 2 movies were legend. So the fact that movie came out in December of that year of 90, it caught a lot of attention. So I think it was in February of 91, which was into their 3rd season of The Simpsons. They came up with the idea they want to create this character, Fat Tony. And I think I never really asked, but I think it just came into their mind of gee, that guy plays the head villain, the main lead villain of Godfather 3. That might be a good choice to play this character, Fat Tony. So they called me and asked me to do that. Now, I thought it was going to be a one-shot deal. I thought, that's just fun. I had to even catch up. I wasn't even sure what The Simpsons was. So I watched, my daughters were very young at the time. One was 2.5. The other one was just months old. And so I watched a couple episodes and went, oh yeah, this is cute. I like the writing. This is smart. It's not like I'm watching a regular old Donald Duck cartoon or something. This is something else. So I said, yeah, that'll be fun. I'll gladly do it. Little did I know after I did that first episode. And I tell you, when I first went in to do it, one thing I was conscious of, I thought, well, gee, the movie's still playing. And if I use my own normal speaking voice, it's going to sound like Fat Tony is Joey Zaza, which I didn't necessarily want to be. I thought, this is not right. This is not really what that's about. So I had an uncle, again, one of my World War II vet uncles, fought under Patton, Army vet, my Uncle Willie, who was the uncle I was probably most closest to because I would take him traveling with me until he passed away in his 90s. Anyway, he, due to the fact that he finally quit smoking, but it caused some, it gave him this kind of a voice where he talked like this. That's the way Uncle Willie talked. So I said to myself, you know what? When I did that first Fat Tony, I thought, I'm just going to do Uncle Willie's voice and see if they don't say, what are you doing? And stop. Let's see what happens. So when we started recording that first episode, I just started saying the lines with this kind of a voice. Nobody said anything. I thought, all right, nobody said anything. I'll just do it. And I did it and thinking, okay, that was that. Glad it'll be fun. Willie will get a kick out of watching it, seeing that. Well, as it turned out, a few months later, they called me, hey, would you be willing to do another one? We really like that character. Seems like we got a good response. Sure. Well, that was 32 years ago. I just did one last week. One aired just, I think, this past Sunday, in fact, and one of the newer ones. I'm very honored, very privileged, humbled at the fact that this character has kind of endured this long. And it's an homage for me, partly to my Uncle Willie. And I brought him, I think about 10 years ago, I brought him to one of the recording sessions. And I said, hey, Willie, say hello to everybody. Yeah, hi, how are you? And they're all like, oh my God, it's him. It's the voice of Fat Tony. It's Fat Tony, the real one. So anyway, that's how it started, and like it's still going. I played young Fat Tony. I played Fat Tony, his nephew, Fat Tony, who became part of Fat Tony.
Fit Tony.
I mean, I did the movie. I think Tom Hanks and I think were two of maybe the only actors outside of the core group that actually were in the actual motion picture, The Simpsons.
Wow.
So I feel very kind of, and I've got a lot of Simpsons swag. I got a Fat Tony bowling ball. I got all kinds of stuff that, So it's my longest running character. I've been doing Criminal Minds for my 15th year doing it, 17 years of the show, but still that's not even half of the amount of time I've been doing Fat Tony. So it's certainly my longest running character.
Yeah, I mean, it's in a show where you have the ensemble cast and then you have these kind of guest appearances and sub characters and one-offs, whatnot. You can easily see where Fat Tony could have been this one-off character. I mean, it speaks to how much people loved him, right? How much people adored him. How of the time it was to be released near, The Godfather.
Right.
I've seen it done. There's other series where you have like Futurama, where they have their mob boss, and so you've this. I don't know. You kind of laid the framework for like what a lot of other successful shows have done, and I mean, it's incredible that it's still. I mean, who knew a cartoon? A cartoon would be going. 30
well, yeah,
plus
the
years.
Simpsons, just the Simpsons in general. I mean, I was doing a movie and a miniseries in Australia, and I remember when I had to do press in Australia. A lot of times I'd go in for the press thing, and the first three questions would be about the movie I was doing there, and then instantly they'd go into the Simpsons, and that's all they want to talk about because the show is so huge in Australia. And the same thing in Canada and other places. It made me realize, wow, I sign as many pictures as Fat Tony as I do as David Rossi. So. I mean, that's part of it. So, but that's great. Whatever. Like I said, I enjoy doing it. I feel lucky to have that opportunity.
Yeah. Do you think? Because I mean, obviously, let's be honest. This is an industry where you're a thespian and you're this prolific actor, and some people that might go like, well, he voiced the character on a cartoon, and like they might toss their nose, turn up their nose at it. What is it about you and your love for this character that makes that you're proud of it? That it's like it's such an established thing.
Yeah. Well, first of all, because I turn off my nose at nothing. To me, the public dictates what I mean. To me, that would be an insult to the public. That's why I've always been very positive about commercial, in the sense that there was a time. I mean, I grew up in an era where if you were either in the movies, or you were in television, or you were in the theater, and those three things never really met. Right. In other words, they would think, oh, well, he's a movie star. And then they'd say, well, that guy, no, he's a TV star. He'll never be a movie star. Well, that all went out the window. I mean, you look nowadays, most of your big name movie stars, if you want to call movie stars, all came from television or from, and it's of course still from the theater. I mean, I came from the theater. That's the fact that I won a Tony Award in '84. That's what changed my career. And that got me into movies and television. Prior to that, I was just banging around like everybody else. So to me, there is no... The British, I think, always understood that. They always had an actor's an actor. It didn't matter what the venue was or the medium you were doing. You put as much pride. I put as much pride in playing Fat Tony as I do playing any other character. And bottom line is, I don't think it's an insult that something is commercially successful. I don't think you need to. Some people will say, "Oh, well, that's not. That's just a cartoon." That cartoon has done more episodes than anything on television. They must be doing something right. I mean, we've done over 300 episodes of Criminal Minds. We don't come near close to what The Simpsons has done. They have something like 800 episodes or something. It's like unbelievable. So that would be like telling the public, you're stupid. You guys, don't know what you're doing watching this stuff. So no, I think in the case of The Simpsons, I think they've elevated, cartoons, animation to another level in a way, just the same way Disney has done it in their way to another level. And it's also, so much of it is a social commentary as well. And I think they spawned, as you kind of inferred, they spawned a lot of other shows that, in a way, too, make that point. And as much about social commentary as it is, just fun. It's not just, it ain't just everybody's little kid cartoon show. And when I was a kid, cartoons on Saturday was, Mighty Mouse and Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. That's great, too. They have their place. So, no, I never felt a kind of a thing like, no, if it's all based on the material and if people, enjoy it, it doesn't matter what the venue is. To me, a cartoon could be as noble and as important as any, Oscar-winning Best Picture.
Yeah. I can't count how many Disney movies I've cried my bawled just tears.
Yeah, of course.
Stories so powerful, and you need the
Right.
voices of these incredible actors to bring these characters to life. I've been very fortunate to interview many voice actors who, and I hate the term like voice actor, because right, you're an actor, right? Regardless of if you're on camera or not.
But some, it's true. Some tend to do more. There are some that just almost exclusively do that. But that's like what I mean. There's room for everything. And I've been fortunate enough to jump around, do books on tape. I've done, voiceover acting. I've done, theater, television, film. So it's. I've been very fortunate to kind of tried it all one time or another.
What an amazing career. Let's talk about Criminal Minds for a second here, because
okay.
I mean, you've done upwards of, I think it was like 283 episodes as David Rossi, the veteran FBI profiler. I mean, with such a long, like, again, comparing it to Fat Tony, but with such a long run as this character, what are some of like the challenges and maybe rewards of playing such a complex, long running character?
Well, first of all, the thing is, I learned early on, and I got some good advice from Don Belisario, who created Magnum PI and NCIS and other shows. I did a series for him early on when I first started doing television series, because I was trying to pick a job that would keep me home more often. Because movies, you travel all over the world, which is great, and I've done it with my family. But my oldest daughter has autism. Travel was always a little more difficult than maybe it would normally be. So when I reached a certain age and status or level, let's say, of my career, I made the actual choice of, let me try to find something that if I could find a series that can kind of keep me more on a regular, basis where I come home at night as opposed to, flying all over the place. Let's try that for a while. And the first taste of it I got was a show called First Monday with the great James Garner. It was about the Supreme Court. And Don Belisario created that show. And one thing he told me when I chose to play my character for that show, he said, pick something, if you can, somewhat close to you. Because unlike a movie or a play, you may do this for years and years and years, and you're going to want to draw on, it's helpful to be able to draw on parts of who you are. So you don't have to make this up or pretend or do all that. And so I did that with the character. Now that show only ran only one season. It was fine. But when I finally got to Criminal Minds, and I remembered that, so first of all, I made him an Italian-American, David Rossi. And so all I can say is there's a lot of Joe Mantegna in David Rossi, I would like to think. There are certain aspects of it. He's a successful writer. He's this, that, and the other. He's in the FBI. Of course, none of those are things that I've done. But his love of food, of being Italian, those aspects, I don't have to make that up. I can kind of let loose and bring a little of me into it, as an actor does with any character he plays. And since I've been doing it now for over 15 years, that's real important with that many episodes. So that's one thing that's been very kind of helpful and important to me. And also the fact that we're portraying a real organization. And that's another important issue. Because when you're doing a movie, let's say you're doing like a Marvel Comics kind of character. It's, you can say, okay, this guy's name is Zondo, and he's from the planet Boobop, and he's this and that. You can go anywhere you want with it.
Yeah.
But I'm playing a guy who's a member of the Behavior Analysis Unit of the FBI. They exist. There is such a unit. And so I've been to Quantico numerous times. And that's been very important. Because my job is, yes, it's a television show. And of course we fictionalize things. We have to. We dramatize them. But all our stories are based in reality. Most of them draw on real instances. From day one to currently, 17 years later of the duration of the show, we have an FBI, behavior analysis unit, either active or retired member who's on staff, who's there to make sure that what we're doing is not so far afield from what can really happen and what these people do every day. So I have such tremendous respect for what they do. And if you go to Quantico once, your mind gets blown because it's like, wow, you think if you had enough time, they'll solve everything. Because it's just that there's just too much going on in the world. You can't solve it all. But boy, they're trying.
To prioritize.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that. So I mean, so for me, it's doing the research and trying to instill as much as I can of my own self somewhat into that character. So there's a lot of Joe and David Rossi, and and I enjoy doing it for that reason because it's a character. And I played the guys on the other side of the street. I mean, like I said, playing Joey Zaza was not a noble kind of character. But I think he, in his own mind, he had a nobility. But he's kind of to society. This guy's, nobody mourned him when he got shot in that movie. But in Criminal Minds, we're talking about men and women who are, they have heroic aspects to them because they're doing a job just like anybody in law enforcement, military, first responders. People who on any given day may lose their life with a job is to protect the rest of us.
Yeah, good guys trying to take down the bad guys.
Exactly. So it's always it's kind of a privilege to play a good guy, to play one this long.
Yeah. I know now, and I think this is a widespread issue, but I know it's rampant in the military community. We watch. And it's like, oh, this guy has no trigger discipline, and that guy's, the patches are upside down, and that the beret is all wrong. Do you get a lot of that from like the FBI community?
I get some, but we're very careful about that. First of all, the other thing is I've been hosting a show on the Outdoor Channel for 13 years now called Gun Stories, where we trace historical firearms. So I mean, if nothing else, I'm not saying I'm the most prolific guy in the world with firearms, but I've probably shot a greater variety of firearms than probably most any human on the planet, because that's the nature of the show. We'll do a whole season where I'm shooting everything from blunderbusses, from Pirates Hughes to 50 cal that you've probably experienced, overseas, to everything in between. We did an episode, The Guns of Annie Oakley, the guns of General the Custer's Last Stand, guns of every country you could think of, World War I, World War II, So, I mean, I've had that. So I mean, I know what it's like, the discipline it takes, an understanding that you have to really understand the ramifications of weapons, the safety factors involved with them, all of that stuff. So we try to, at least in terms of Criminal Minds, we're very conscious of the fact of, again, there's going to be some dramatic license and there's going to be things that people are going to spot. But for the most part, we do everything we can to be as authentic as possible. Because and I found out even sometimes among the guys, even among the pros, they're going to slip every once in a while, and things aren't going to be like, hey, wait a minute, you're not wearing that hat really correctly, or you're not, something like that. But we do the best we can. But that is important, especially when you're portraying a real organization.
Yeah. And sometimes I think the general public forgets sometimes too. It's you're filming something, and especially with TV, I know that, the difference between TV and movie, like TV moves fast. You gotta go, shoot the scene, move on. And then we, the public, get to watch it, and I can rewatch it in slow motion and rewind it.
And
pick it apart when it's like, you guys are just like, hey, we got to shoot this thing and move on to the next thing. So
exactly,
you do the best you can. So I like
there is that. You're right.
You've also directed some episodes of Criminal Minds and other projects. Mm-hmm. I mean, what are some of the differences and similarities between acting and directing? Like, have you seen?
Well, I've directed 10 episodes of Criminal Minds, and I've tried every one of them. But the difference would be like this. It's a difference between being like an enlisted man in the Army or being the general, somewhat. I mean, when you're one of the enlisted members, you do what the guy above you tells you to do, and you go do that. And that's all you really have to worry about. When you're the general, you got to worry about everybody. And you got to worry about where we're going, how we're getting there, what do we look like, what do we need to take with us. So I mean, it's a huge responsibility, but I enjoy it. I've enjoyed it. It takes a lot of preparation, and I didn't jump into it like initially. I didn't study to be a director in high school and college and all that. But I waited until I felt I had enough experience under my belt as an actor and observing and just kind of seeing. And I've directed in theater. I directed in theater a good amount prior, before I kind of got into film and television. But it's a whole different experience, especially when you're also in the show, because you're also acting and then you're directing it as well. But I think if an actor is prolific or proficient enough as an actor, there's a good chance if you can feel it, whether man or woman. In our show, we're lucky; we have some of the girls have been directing. Aisha's directed some episodes. AJ Cook has directed some episodes. Adam Rodriguez has directed. I've directed. And in the past, Matthew Gubler's directed some. So anyway, it's a different experience. But again, it's one thing of being one of the troops or the guy who's leading the troops, and so it's a different experience. But I enjoy both.
That's awesome. I got to mention too, you were in 2 episodes recently of Barry, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so good. Great show. You did awesome in it. Is it? I'm curious. Is it weird playing like a fictionalized version of yourself, like you're playing you, but kind of not
Right.
you?
No, not really, because all you have to do is never forget that's who you're playing. I was playing me, and in fact, that was my idea. If you watch that one episode, that was my idea to pass him a challenge coin, because I thought if this guy's, in that episode, he's supposedly done something right for the military,
Right?
And so then let's, for all the guys out there like yourself who wouldn't understand what that is, let me just throw that in there, And I threw in a Semper Fi, too, as my little kind of homage to the Marine Corps, only because my character in Criminal Minds is a former Marine. So no, my thing is, I kind of, it's an adjustment. It's like you have to realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm not playing, I don't have to adapt anything but me. This is Joe. I'm playing Joe, and it was kind of fun. That's why when they offered it to me, I didn't even hesitate. I said, oh, yes, I'll absolutely do that. And Bill Hader and Hader and Winkler are two of the most nicest human beings you'd ever want to meet. So it was just a total pleasure.
Yeah, it was that scene that triggered the memory. I went, oh my God, he gave me a coin years ago. That's why I ended up.
Right, there you go.
I saw that scene and I went, oh my God, I had a box and I had to dig it out, but I had it. You've played a variety of roles, different genres, comedy, drama, thriller. What are some of the genres or roles that you'd like to explore more, or maybe even something you haven't done that you'd like to try for the first time?
Yeah. I never had a wish list. I never did, in the sense of that I always felt like I never know what's waiting out there. In other words, and it's worked out. Like, in other words, I never said, some actors do, and it's fine. They plan it. They'll say, I really want to do I live to do the Shakespeare thing or a thing that I've written or whatever it may be, or I want to do a Western, I want to do this. I've been, I always kind of played the cards that were dealt me, and then followed that path, and it's kind of worked out. So, like I said, I started in the theater. All of a sudden that led to some film work, and that led to some television work. But I didn't know, when I got the call from, the agent calls and says, oh, there's a show, Criminal Minds, where this one actor's leaving the show. They're interested in you coming and creating a character for it. Are you interested? So, well, let me see. Let me meet with them. Let me see what it's all about. Let me look at a couple episodes. And I did. And I loved what I saw. I thought this was a great ensemble show. I liked the characters. I liked what it was about. And one of my dearest friends, Meshack Taylor, he had told me about the show for years prior, the 2 years it had been on prior, saying, oh, you got to watch this show, Joe. This is fantastic. So I was so grateful in a way that I was able to, once I got on that show, specifically was able to arrange for that actor, Meshack Taylor, to come on that show and play this character of my commanding officer from Vietnam who's homeless on the streets of LA. And then he wound up doing two episodes over 2 seasons. Then the actor passed away. And we actually were able to do an episode where we actually did a whole Marine funeral, and we buried not just that character, but in essence, one of my best friends who was somewhat responsible for me getting that job, because he was the one that talked up that show to me early on. So when they first made the offer, I says, well, I better check this out. This is Meshack's favorite show, and then to finally be able, and that was the last thing he did as an actor, was doing those 2 episodes with me on that show. So to me, that's almost, there's something spiritual about that, something very serendipitous about that. So,
all your stories are so great. They all come full circle. I love it. All your experiences are incredible.
Yeah. Oh
man, it's so good. Well, one day when you get that Marvel product, or you get that DC, I want to, you got to come back so we can talk about.
Yeah, sure. No, I'd be glad to do that, because it turns out I think when a guy was like first AD on a movie I did back in the mid '80s. I think last I heard, I think he was president of Marvel Films. I got to look him up, saying, hey, come on, maybe you'll find some Italian some looking old Italian guy that's
there's
like a
so
sort of
many
Marvel
based,
character.
yeah, there's so many of the shows based in New York. I mean, how could you not
Yeah,
have an Italian character? Just,
yeah. Who
hey,
knows?
what
Oh,
are you
whatever,
doing?
whatever. But I've had a great ride, and on we go.
That's awesome. We got a few more minutes here. I'm gonna ask you a couple more questions, and then we'll let you go.
Okay, alrighty.
You have been honored with several awards and recognition, Tony Award, a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, Lifetime Achievement Award from the Hollywood Film Festival. Are there any, I don't know, highlights of your career that like pop to mind, or goals that you want to accomplish in the future?
Yeah, goals I don't have. Like I said, if it ended tonight, I would say, God, I feel very blessed with what I've been able to do, and that's great. Goals, no, I never really had a goal. I equate it to sports because I've always loved baseball and football and basketball. I mean, I'm a sports fan, and I equate it to sports in the sense that all I wanted to do was make the bigs. Let the chips fall where they may. I wanted to play in the majors, and I do, and I have for a long time now. When it's all said and done, when a career is over, let the public decide where I fit in. If there are people out there that say, "Oh man, yeah, he was my favorite actor," or people say, "Oh, I think he was pretty good," there's no good, better, best in this business. You're all out there doing that thing, but you want to do it at the highest level you can. And I've been blessed to do it at the highest level. I've worked with the greatest directors in the world. Worked at the highest level of all the mediums of the theater, Broadway, television, and film. So to me, that's it. I've already hit the jackpot. Where it goes from here, I don't know. And it's okay, And in terms of highlights, they've all been highlights, for different reasons, for different things, I got to play Dean Martin, who was one of my heroes in the movie The Rat Pack. I mean, what a joy that was. I got to do movies with my dear friend David Mamet, who we were both struggling back in the 70s, and all of a sudden he becomes one of the world's greatest screenwriters and playwrights. And that's where I won my Tony Award doing something with him. And to this day, we're still closest of friends. So no wish list for me. Like I said, it's all been good, and we'll see. I could get a phone call tomorrow that sets me off on another path that changes everything for the next 5-10 years. So who knows? We'll see.
That's awesome. Oh, I love it. I just love everything about it. Wrapping it up, when I bring it back, you kind of mentioned it. You've been married forever with your wife, Arlene, and you have your 2 daughters, right, one of whom is an actress. Maybe give some advice here. How do you balance that family life and your career, and maybe give some advice out there?
Yeah, you get lucky. I mean, I've been lucky. The woman that I married is somebody we've known each other since, she was in high school and I was in junior college, and we knew each other. We weren't dating, we weren't together, but it was like we were both doing theater in that part of Chicago, district-wide. They would do these district-wide plays, these musicals, and I would do them and she would do them. So I knew who she was. But it wasn't until later we both tried out for the play Hair in 1969. We both get cast, and she got actually cast right away in one of the leads. I had to work my way up. I got cast in the chorus, but I worked my way up to one of the leads. But it was like, so we've been together since 1969. And so luckily, this is a woman who's just very, she's incredibly strong. She's incredibly perfect partner is all I could say. And I'm not saying that it's, you go through periods. I mean, it's like marriage is a roller coaster. You go, some of it gets scary, and sometimes you almost get thrown out of the roller coaster. But if you can, if the ride is good and it's worth it, you hang in there and you get through the scary parts, and then it gets actually, in a way, gets better and better. So I've been very blessed that way. I've been blessed, like I said, with and it's tough in this business. I know. I mean, I think marriages that last over 50 years are rare, but I've been fortunate that way, and we work at it, and we've got our 2 daughters are great. And like I said, I got no complaints. I live by the motto, everybody has a story and nobody gets a free ride. I mean, and that's the truth. I mean, I don't care who you are. You could look at somebody who you think, oh my God, I want to be him. That's the most successful, happy person in the world. I wish I was him. Then you dig deep enough, you'll find, oh, wait a minute. No, I didn't know there was that thing going on in their life, or they had to deal with that or this or that. You know what I mean? So everybody's got a story, and nobody gets a free ride. But that's okay. I have mine, you have yours. On you go. You make the best of that situation.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Let's close it out with,
Okay.
is there any advice that you would give aspiring actors that kind of want to follow your incredible footsteps?
Yeah, I'll say this. I always took the work seriously, but I never took the business seriously, and I still don't. In essence, if you like the work, if you like acting or directing, whatever it may be, that art form, then do it. And do it at any level you can do it, whether it's community theater or in school. I'm a big proponent of doing it in school, because if I wouldn't have been exposed to it in high school and then junior college, I would have never gone on to it. I don't think there was no reason pointing me to be an actor. I might as well said I was going to become a Martian, because nobody in my family was in show business. But in high school, I got exposed to it, and I just knew, oh man, I like this, and I just kept doing it. And I didn't know if I was going to be successful. And I was doing, I was with a theater company in Chicago. I did little bit parts here and there, but nothing professionally for a long time, And it really wasn't until I'd been in the business like 15 years when my career really jumped to a very high level. But it's okay. I don't enjoy it. Let me put it this way. I don't enjoy it any more now than I did when I did it in high school. Yeah, I get paid more and all that comes with that. But the enjoyment factor is exactly the same. And I think an athlete will tell you that. If you go to Michael Jordan, I bet he would tell you, I had just as much fun doing it as high school as I did when I won the rings with the Bulls or any other athlete. And that's the same thing. So my advice is that just do it. If you like doing it, do it. And then the chips are going to fall where they may. Just enjoy it. If you stop enjoying it, then you got to think twice. Then move on to something else.
Fantastic. All right. With that,
all right.
Is there any? Are you a social media guy? Should people follow you?
I got there's I'm like a dinosaur with that stuff. But I luckily have an assistant who's been with me 22 years, 20 something years, and he handles it. But you can go on joemantegna.com and it'll tell you what I'm doing and what's up and all that kind of stuff. And and that's it. And all I would say is make sure you send me a mailing address, because you've got a Fat Tony coming your way.
Hell yeah. Awesome.
All righty.
Where can people, where next season of Criminal Minds, what can we expect?
As soon as this strike's over, as soon as this writing strike is over, now all gets resolved and we start going back to work, we'll start season 17, which is basically season 2 of Criminal Minds Evolution. And we'll pick up right where we left off. I'm shooting another season of Gun Stories for Outdoor Channel, where we're, again, tracing all kinds of historical firearms. And watch the Memorial Day concert on Sunday, the day before Memorial Day, on your PBS station.
That's right.
And that's it. That's all I got.
We'll be promoting the hell out of it on the station. I will be there. Hopefully, maybe we can link up at some point and get a picture.
That'd be great. We'll do that then.
Absolutely.
Let's do that.
That would be fantastic. Guys,
okay.
I'll give you the last 2 seconds here to say goodbye to the audience, and then we'll toss it to a break.
Okay. Take care. Proud to be with you all. Take care. Especially all you veterans out there.
All right, guys. This has been Joe Mantegna, the legend himself. We'll be back with more right after this. Shots.